So, have you ever stopped to think about what the absolute peak of human consciousness really is? I'm not just talking about feeling happy or really, really focused. I mean a state of mind that goes completely beyond our physical reality. Well, today, that's exactly where we're going. We're going to explore the ultimate states of awareness as described in Theravada Buddhism, a journey to the very edge of existence itself. Let's dive in. And that's really the core question for this whole explainer. We're pushing past everyday awareness and stepping into states of mind that are so incredibly refined, they're said to be completely free from the physical world. Yeah, we are talking about a type of consciousness that can perceive realities our senses can't even begin to register. Our journey starts with a concept known as the Mahaggata Chittas, which translates to exalted consciousnesses. Now, I know it sounds a little technical, but you can basically think of these as the major leagues of the mind. These are powerful, super developed states that act as the launch pad for the even more mind-blowing states we're about to get into. This is our foundation. Okay, first stop, we go beyond the physical. We're stepping into what's called the immaterial sphere. This is a level of consciousness that has totally let go of any connection to form, to sight, to sound, anything material. This is where the mind is operating in a realm of pure abstract concepts. And get this, within this formless realm, it's not just one big uniform state. The texts actually map out 12 distinct types of consciousness, the Arupa Vachara Chittas. Each one represents a unique and progressively more subtle, non-physical state of being. Now, what's so fascinating is what all 12 of these states have in common. They all exist at the highest level of meditative absorption, or jhana. Think of it as the deepest, most stable state of concentration possible. And because of that, the feeling here isn't joy or happiness, but something way more profound, a perfect, unshakable equanimity. They're described as being more subtle, more peaceful than any state of mind that's still tied to the physical world. And because these states are so incredibly refined, all the usual mental noise has just fallen away. The mind's entire operating system has been stripped down to just two core mental factors: perfect equanimity and unshakable, one-pointed focus. That's it. Everything else is gone. So, you might be wondering, if all 12 of these states share the same core qualities, what makes them different from each other? Well, that brings us to the four formless spheres. The difference between them isn't about the mental qualities, those are already at their peak. It's all about the incredibly subtle object the mind is focused on. This table really lays out the progression perfectly. Just look at how the focus gets more and more abstract. You start with a concept, boundless space. Then you take the consciousness of that space as your new focus. After that, you focus on the absence of that consciousness. And finally, you land on a state so subtle it almost defies description. It's a wild ride. So the first step is to completely transcend form. Imagine a meditator who's an expert at focusing on a physical thing, like a colored circle. To get into this first sphere, they mentally remove that circle and shift their focus to only the boundless, infinite space that's left behind. Now, in the second sphere, the mind does something truly remarkable. It lets go of the concept of infinite space and instead takes the very consciousness that was aware of that space as its new object. The mind is literally observing itself in its most expansive form. It's consciousness, looking at consciousness. To go even deeper, the meditator has to shift focus again, and this time, the object is the complete absence of that previous state. Now, this isn't just a blank mind. It's a very precise, very focused perception of the non-existence of that boundless consciousness. The object is literally nothingness. And this brings us to the absolute peak of what you could call worldly consciousness. Here, the state of mind is so subtle, so incredibly tranquil, that perception itself becomes almost imperceptible. You can't really say it exists because it's so faint, but you can't say it doesn't exist because there's still awareness. It's the absolute pinnacle of existence within the cycle of birth and death. But here's the crucial pivot point. As high as we've climbed, we've only reached the peak of the world. The formless spheres transcend matter, which is absolutely incredible. But there's a whole other class of consciousness that does something even more radical. It transcends the entire world of conditioned existence itself. And this brings us to the ultimate category, the supramundane,
or Lukatara consciousness. This isn't just another refined state of being. No, this is the consciousness of enlightenment. So when we say beyond the world, what does that actually mean? We're not talking about some other dimension or planet. In this context, the world refers to the conditioned reality of our five aggregates: our body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness, the very building blocks of our experience of suffering. This supermundane consciousness has two distinct phases, and you can think of it like a lightning strike and the thunder that follows. First, you have path consciousness. This is the active, powerful, instantaneous moment that eradicates mental defilements for good. It's the flash of lightning that just cuts through delusion. And then, immediately after that, you get fruition consciousness. That's the thunder. It's the experience of the peace and the freedom that results from that cut. So, how does this whole process of liberation actually unfold? Well, it's not just one big aha moment. It's a path with very distinct and irreversible stages. There are 4 major stages of enlightenment, starting with stream entry and going all the way to arahatship, or full liberation. And each of these 4 stages has its own unique path consciousness that wipes out a specific set of mental baggage, and its own fruition consciousness that gets to experience the freedom that comes from that. It's a progressive, step-by-step, irreversible path of purification.
So if you do the math, you've got a path and a fruit for each of those 4 stages. That gives us a total of 8 fundamental types of supermundane consciousness, 4 paths that do the heavy lifting, and 4 fruits that get to enjoy the peace that follows.
But wait, it gets even more detailed. Remember those jhanas, the levels of meditative absorption we talked about earlier? When these 8 states of enlightenment are combined with those 5 different levels of deep concentration, the count expands all the way to 40. And this just brilliantly shows how deep tranquility and penetrating insight have to work hand in hand. It's not enough to just see the truth. The mind has to be stable enough to fully realize it.
All right, which brings us to the final and maybe most important question. What is this ultimate consciousness actually focused on? What is its object?
And this right here is the absolute key. Unlike every other type of consciousness we've talked about, which always takes some conditioned thing as its object, a sight, a sound, a thought, even the concept of nothingness, supermundane consciousness has only one object, nibbana, the unconditioned, the timeless, the end of all suffering.
And because its object is completely pure, the consciousness itself is perfectly built for its job. It's always rooted in non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. It always has the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path baked right in. And interestingly, mental states like compassion and joy are actually absent, not because they're bad, of course, but because the mind's focus in that moment is laser-focused on the unconditioned reality of Nibbana itself, not on the experience of other beings.
And so that's where we'll leave it. We've journeyed from the world of form, up through the formless realms, all the way to a state that is said to transcend the world entirely. So if the mind truly has the capacity to directly experience a reality that is unconditioned and timeless, what does that suggest about the nature of the conditioned, time-bound world that we all experience every single day? Something to think about.